Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, if you're in the East Coast. My name is Dan File. I'm a solutions architect with Megaport. And today I'm going to do some quick conversations around the difference between our MCR, Megaport Cloud Router product, and our MVE. This can be used for, cloud to cloud, SD-WAN, or even building the global WAN. So with that, let me just do a couple of slides here. I'm going to exit out of this view here super quick. And so if you remember, Megaport owns and operates, well, we don't own, we use different carriers to link all of our different sites together. But we are global in nature, meaning, our heaviest presence is in North America, then EMEA, APAC. We're now down in Sao Paulo. We're building out Brazil. So we are truly becoming a network SD-WAN, a network as a service powerhouse within the industry. Um, so if I go down here and let's look at some of the what the MCR does really quick and the difference between what an MVE does. Go right here. The MCR is typically used for like cloud to cloud, right? Um, you can have a tail, meaning a VXC, come back to a port in the data center. If you're trying to integrate maybe one data center into multiple clouds, let's say that you have Google and Azure talking together, but you still need to have it tied back to the data center, then you would just put a port in the data center, build a VXC to the MCR, send, create the BGP peer, and then you'd kind of have a three-legged solution. MVE is a little bit different from the standpoint of it does the same thing, except this is to bring your own license. So if you want to bring a Cisco 8000V license, right? Maybe you wanted to do a little bit more advanced features that a Cisco 8000V might do, or you wanted CLI access. You would load a Cisco 8000V on here. You would attach an internet drain to it. This would be a Megaport internet drain, and that's how you would administer that box. You can also use it for SD-WAN and firewall. So if you had Palo Alto, like 7108, Palo Alto Prisma, or you had Fortinet, right? Fortinet SD-WAN, or maybe you used Aviatrix or Aruba or something like that. You would bring those licenses also. You would load those on this MVE. You would build the internet connection for not only administration, but also to send your VPN tunnels to. And then you would connect to the different clouds. Again, if you wanted a data center off of here, you would, create a port in the data center. You would build a VXC off of the MVE into the data center, and you'd have the same thing as, you had on an MCR, except this is to bring your own platform. Now, I don't want to minimize the MCR by saying this is kind of my first router because it does have a lot of features. But the thing that it is it's more of a managed solutions, meaning you don't have to bring your license. Um, you go through a GUI to set it all up. You can do things like prefix lists and packet filter lists and stuff like that. You can do med. You can wait, prepend, and do a bunch of things that you would normally do in a router. But if you want those super advanced configurations, like building different VRFs or maybe building some ACLs or something like that, that's going to be more in line with what you're going to do in the MVE. So with that being said, let's kind of jump into Portal. Now I've built an MCR here, and I've built an MVE here on Palo Alto, just because this is up and it takes a while to bring the internet up and do all that stuff. But let's go in and here and create a new MCR. Um, so we're going to create an MCR. So let me start here. This is our dashboard on our portal. Now, there's a whole lot of services in here because, this is a development demo portal. It does use live services. I mean, it uses live resources, live ports, live VMs, but it's just in a controlled environment. If we're adding on new vendors and new products, you might see it in, we'll see it in here before we see it in the customer portals. But this is your main dashboard, right? Most of you will probably spend most of your time in this services tab. I have a filter on, let me clear these filters, but this is where all your services would kind of be, right? So Glenn has an MCR here going to AWS. Um, there's a whole bunch of different one in here. I know Kevin's in here, Todd's in here, all the different, essays and people that want to configure stuff. You can see Dave built the port here. But anyway, so let's kind of filter this down to so it doesn't look so messy. And we're just going to filter it on my name because I've built everything with my first name and initial. So we're going to create an MCR and let's create this in Ashburn, let's say. So in Ashburn, you can see I have different locations where I could build this MCR. Ashburn. So I can be in CoreSite, Equinix DC4, NTT, or QTS. You can see I'm in auto configure, which means it's gonna choose red zone or blue zone on its own. If you know Megaport, we have different stacks of hardware. We call them zones, red zone and blue zone. They're in different hardware stacks. So we could say, well, I want to be in red because maybe I deployed a blue, or maybe I want to build diversity on something else. So you can see that I have red in CoreSite, Equinix, and QTS, and I have blue in CoreSite, DC4, Equinix, but now instead of QTS, I have NTT. So it really doesn't matter. Let's just go ahead and build this in CoreSite. And you can see it's now going to ask me, what rate limit I want. So let me go back here because I want to do something else. I want to go build, and let's put it in auto. We'll go DC4. If you know anything about Megaport in the past and our cloud router, you know that we still do have, but our limitation was 1 gig, 2.5, 5, and 10. We now have locations, certain locations across, North America and the globe, typically in your bigger cities like Chicago, New York, Ashburn, where we now support 25, 50, and 100 gig cloud routers. For this, I'm just going to do a small cloud router, but I want to let you know that different locations, we do support those higher cloud routers. I'm going to call this Dan P2 MCR. The service level reference is like if I was building this to a project, so maybe this is the migration project, right? Or if I had a PO, it's a migration project, PO 1, 2, 3, 4. It's optional. You don't have to have anything here. So just so you know what that field is for. Something new with in the past, we just rolled it out actually. I mean, we've had it out for maybe a month, but and we've announced it on LinkedIn, but you can add IPsec now to the MCR. So when I add IPsec, that means I'm going to have to create an internet drain for it. And we do charge for 10 licenses or 10 tunnels, I guess should say. So it's $100 additional for the 10 tunnels. In the future, we will have a pack that supports 30 tunnels, but today it's just 10 tunnels. And you can see the different rates here based on the size, meaning the 1 gig MCR that I chose. So I'm going to choose minimum term because this is in demo. I can automatically renew this if I want to. Now, when I auto renew, I have to be in a term. I can turn it on or off. In a minimum term, I don't get the chance to automatically renew. I can use the Megaport ASN 133,937, or I can choose this something different if I wanted to do 64080 or whatever private ASN I wanted to. I'm just going to leave this alone because this is really only used for BGP peering. I'm going to go ahead and review this here. It says I've got $600 as my monthly rate. There's no term discounts. I'm adding on a 10 pack of IPsec tunnels. I'm in the blue zone. I'm going to go ahead and add this MCR. So I put it in my cart. I like to call this the Megaport quote Amazon shopping cart, right? And I can review the order over here and then bring up the MCR. Let's go ahead and just add the internet to this thing and we'll bring up both at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and add Megaport internet. This is the blue MCR. You can see that I have both blue and red zones in the Ashburn area. If for some reason I wanted to take my VXC, my internet out of the area, I'm only 6 milliseconds away from New York. I could have the internet drain out of New York. I could have it out of Boston. For this, I'm just going to have it in Ashburn. I'm going to call this, let's just do 100 meg. It's $180. I'm going to add it to my cart. And then I'm going to review this order. It's going to validate this order and I'm going to order it now. All right, so we're going to get this guy spun up. So it's going to sit here. It's waiting for its resource allocation. It's going to go ahead and be configured and deployed. This is going to take about maybe 2 minutes to bring the MCR up. The internet takes a little longer. It assigns an IP address, has a lot more things that happen in the background, which is kind of why I built this one down here so we could look at it if we're waiting on the internet. So let's let this do its business. And we're going to go in and we're going to create an MVE. Now, like I said, an MVE is the bring your own license version, and it does have a lot more power. And based on the type of processing you need, you're going to get that from whichever platform you're going to use. It has different amounts of CPUs and RAM. So you can see our platforms. I got 6 wins. I got and a Papaya. I can do Arista, Aruba. Um, Cisco 8000 is if I clicked on this, it would bring me into. I'm not going to deploy this. I'm going to deploy Palo Alto, but if I just went and chose like I don't know 2x8, pick the term. You can see I can put this in SD-WAN mode for Cisco SD-WAN, or I can put it in autonomous mode. Um, so the 8000V is used for both. So we don't differentiate about Cisco SD-WAN. It's the same box. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. I'm going to go in and build another MVE. And this time we're going to choose, you can see we're supporting Meraki now. We have Fortinet, Palo Alto, Peplink, Versa. I'm going to use a Palo Alto 7108, right? So it tells me that it requires an 8x32. If you miss that, let me go back. Requires an 8x32 MVE. That's the only way you can deploy it on. I'm going to use this in Ashburn. You can see, again, I have red zones, blue zones. This is the only location NTT that I have this 8x32. It's available. I'm going to choose my term anywhere from month to month down to 36 months. I'm then going to go get my ION key. Now, typically, I'm going to have to get that from Strata Manager. So let's go into my ION license management. Here's my 7108s. I could have done the 3102 branch office. This is the one that I used earlier and the one I already spin up. So let's go grab this key here. We're going to drop that in here. And then I'm going to go back here and get my secret key. Put that in here. And Palo Alto is static from the standpoint, you get a controller port. Typically, this is your WAN port where you're going to put your internet drain to it. And then you have 2 additional ports, right? You can add ports, but in the Palo Alto configuration, it really doesn't matter here. Go ahead and add this. Again, if this is where a project, you could add a service tag. I'm going to add this MVE. And then immediately what it's going to do, it says, okay, now you got to create your Megaport internet. This is so that when the MVE spins up, it can talk back to Strategy Manager, right? So then I could go in and claim the device and things like that. Now, I'm not going to get too much into Strata Manager today because that's a whole different thing. I'm just showing how we're deploying Palo Alto into the Megaport MVE. So I'm going to create an internet. This is on the blue zone out of NTT. I'm going to choose this. But again, it doesn't matter. I can choose red. That's fine. We typically like to see, what's called blue on blue or red on red, especially if you want to have diverse devices in the same metro region. You would deploy blue on blue. So that way, if we're doing maintenance on blue zones on that night, you wouldn't take down a blue router, which then took down a red internet. Just kind of makes sense to have blue on blue, red on red. But there's no reason you couldn't mix match if you wanted to. Did I call that something? Let me go back. I'm gonna call this this is fine. This is just the internet connection. I'm gonna make this 100 meg. Oh, I can do a gig, but let's not do a gig. You can see that for 100 meg is $180 and it's only $240 for a gig. So you are really getting bang for your buck here. But let's do 100, $180. I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna add this VXC. And then I'm going to end up deploying both of these. So I'm going to review the order. I'm going to order it now. And I'm going to let this guy do its stuff. So the MVE does take a little bit longer to come up. It's going to probably take 3 or 4 minutes, something like that. The internet VXC, like I said, let's see, this is what I was afraid of. I think it called it NTT. We'll go back and fix that later. I'm going to clear these filters. Here's the one that the MVE I just spun up. I didn't rename it DNP. So when I filter, I got to wait for this thing to come up, then I can go in and rename it. But let's just go in here and refilter here. All right, so you can see now that my new MCR is up. I'm still waiting for the internet, but let's just use this one here. So when I go into the MCR, I can do things like build prefix filter list, right? So if I wanted to build a filter list, I can click on new. I can build a prefix filter list. I can call this, I don't know, inbound or something like that. I could do a match or I could do a don't match. So if I wanted to match a certain subnet, let's say my IP address coming from home was for, or from my network was the, let's say it was the 104.28.217.0/24 network. And the only thing I wanted to do was allow incoming IP addresses from this /24 to this prefix filter list to let it into my MVE or to my MCR. So I can save this. I could also do, so you see I have my name here, right? I could do packet filter list. I'm not going to build one here, but you can see that 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 the packet filter is configured. Any traffic not permitted by the filter is denied. I can have 20 packet filter lists up configured on each MCR, and I can have 50 entries in each packet filter list. So that's a lot, right? I can go through the next here. It just really is the summary. It has my service logs. Then if there's any maintenance or anything that goes on, I have utilization, which I don't really have anything going on here with it. You say I got some stuff going on just from the internet standpoint of view, but really don't have much going on. So let's close out of this. Now this is where when you go into the VXC itself, and you can now also build, if I wanted to, I could build connections off of here to Google or AWS. Again, really not what the point of today is, but as I talked through the presentation on that one slide, maybe I'm building an IPsec tunnel from a remote site into this MCR because I don't have an SD-WAN platform. but I do need to get to Azure and maybe Google. Then I could add the Google pairing key. I would need to go into Google, create my Google pairing key, drop that in here. You can see all the locations we support, anywhere from Ashburn to, New York. I mean, anywhere across the globe. Microsoft Azure, I need my Azure key again, depending upon where, anywhere across the globe, right? But let's cancel out of this. We do have when here, this is where we would apply that route filter if I wanted to, right? So the packet filters and the route filters. I know I'm getting kind of behind on time here. Um, Here's where I would add my IPsec tunnels, because I did put IPsec tunnels on here, so I could build an IPsec tunnel. I would have my source address. I would have my destination IP address, which might be Azure, AWS. I would have a pre-shared key. I could do active or passive. Active means that this MCR is going to launch the tunnel out to the far end device. Um, this might be, let's see if it's 104.28.217.97, maybe is the far end IP address. Passive mode means that the router or my firewall or whatever's in my data center is going to launch into the MCR. This is typically the default, because the MCR is just going to be sitting here waiting for the IPsec tunnel to come to it, right? It does have specific ciphers that it uses: AES 128, AES 256, different type of ciphers. Again, I could add some packet filters to it if I wanted to. I'm not really going to fill all this out, but I think you get the idea. Um, Again, with the MVE, now you can see that, well, this MCR internet hasn't come up. Let's go back and clear these filters. Let's refresh here. Still waiting for the MVE to come up, it looks like. It is up. Let me just go in here real quick. I think my internet's lagging. I'm just going to rename this MVE2, call it Dan P. And go ahead and save this. All right, so I'm going to cancel out of this. I'm now going to go build a filter. Come on now. Let's reload this. I had this trouble earlier. My internet's been kind of off today. So now let's go back in here and we'll build this Dan P. And now you can see I brought that MVE back in and it's up. So this is talking back to the Strata Manager now. I could go into Strata Cloud Manager. I could go into my dashboard, or I could go into my workflows and bring up SD-WAN and bring up my branch site. Let's go to devices here. I can look at unclaimed devices. Here's the two that I am, built this morning. I could then go in and claim this one. Again, not really going to go over this because this is more of a Palo Alto, how you do Palo Alto thing. Really want to focus on the portal, but I know with lack of time, I'm going to cut the demo short. I think you guys understand, and especially if you know much about Megaport or watched our sessions in the past, that we could then either from the MVE or the MCRs build these cloud connections to Google, we could build private VXCs, which is maybe something I'll do super quick here. I'm going to go ahead and build a port. I'm going to create this port. Maybe I'm in Philadelphia. Maybe I'm in neutrality, Philadelphia, right? I'm going to build a 10 gig port. Going to give this a name. Going to choose my term. I could build diversity if I wanted to. I could create a diverse pair, which is going to be 2 ports. Now you're going to see it's $1,200, but it's going to build one in the red zone, one in the blue zone. Let's not do that. We're not going to add diversity. We just want to get this guy going. All right, we're going to deploy this. Now this port's not going to come up because when it does come up or be in a configured state, it's going to let me download the LOA. I'm going to need to provide this LOA to neutrality in Philadelphia, and they need to run a cross connect from this port over to um, my router, or my switch, or firewall. But once that's done, then this port would go green like all these other services. Going to let this come up here real quick. But what I also could do is, if I wanted to, I could build a connection off of the MVE, as we talked about earlier. It would be a private VXC. And I can build it to this. Here's the DAN port. So I can build it to my port that I built in neutrality in Philadelphia. Maybe I wanted that to be 1 gig. This is VXC to MVE. I want to put it on port 1, not on the controller port. I want to separate the Megaport internet from any of my internal VXCs. No term. I'm going to add this VXC, and I'm going to go ahead and quickly deploy this. Or no. So you can see that took maybe 30, 40 seconds, and I've already got my LOA on my port in Philadelphia. So I can download this here. This is what I would give to neutrality at 401 North Broad. I have my port assignments, my racks, my ports, LC connectors, single mode fiber, everything I need to have a cross connect run from the Megaport port over to my cage. So we kind of went through here this morning the differences between an MVE, which we call VPOP, gives you more control, can be used as SD-WAN, head ends, it can be used as firewalls, can be used as routers. We also went through the MCR, which is typically cloud to cloud. However, it can add IPsec tunnels on it now. You can have ties back to the data center. Um, Christina, it looks like we got 2 more minutes. Is there any questions in queue I haven't been watching that we need to look at?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. So with that, again, my name is Dan File. I'm a solutions architect here with Megaport. I live in the Midwest. Hope that this helped today's session with a little bit deeper understanding of the difference between MCR and MVE. And I hope you have a great Friday. Thanks and have a great weekend.